Nebraska's run defense in 2025 was abysmal. They gave up nearly 5 yards per carry. They allowed opponents to score touchdowns in the red zone 79% of the time, which is ranked dead last in the FBS. And additionally, they also allowed a much more inferior Akron Zips team to rush for over 100 yards, while a weaker Wyoming Cowboys team held them to less rushing yards. Just to point out a few numbers there. Nebraska's run defense was terrible. So, if you're Nebraska entering 2026, and you want to separate yourself from the middle of the pack of the Big Ten and finally take that step that every Nebraska fan has been itching for Nebraska to do, well, it all starts with stopping the run. It's as simple as that. The Big Ten is a physical, defensive, run-oriented conference. And that is the reality. And if you can't stop the run in the Big Ten, you're not going to stop anything. And that's the reality. So, today's question is, can Nebraska's defense stop the run in 2026? Will they have the ability to stop the run and improve, and not give up 5 yards per carry, not allowing opponents to score touchdowns 79% of the time? Can they improve in those metrics and be a competitive and solid defense, also a solid defensive line? And so I believe Nebraska will be able to achieve this. I have evaluated our defensive linemen. I believe they're going to be an improved defensive line. I mean, you can't be worse than last year's defensive line. I mean, you can, but it'd be really hard. But nonetheless, I think Nebraska will be able to achieve this. But why do I say this? I'm not just saying this for funsies. Why am I saying that Nebraska's run defense will be improved? And so when I say improved, do I mean that they're going to give up only 2.8 yards per carry, like the 2023 defense? No, I don't mean that at all. When I say improved, do I mean they're giving up 3.4 yards per carry, like in 2024? No, I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is, I think it's a happy medium between the 2024 and last year's. If they're giving up 5 yards per carry, or 4.8, and they were giving up 3.4 in 2024, how would they give up only 3.8 or for about 4 yards per carry? Could they achieve that? Or instead of scoring touchdowns or allowing opponents to score touchdowns in the red zone 79% of the time, could they trim that to maybe 65% of the time or 60% of the time? That's what I mean when I say improved. Could they achieve those numbers? Because if they're, just kind of willy-nilly just getting pushed around by offensive linemen, they're not going to win some of these Big Ten games that are toss-up games. So, does Nebraska have this ability? Okay, so first, let's look at the defensive line. So the defensive line consists of a lot of, I think, high upside players, and you got some veterans too. So first, let's look at the interior defensive line. So Owen Stoudemire, first guy that comes to my mind, along with Jashir Whittington. But we'll start with Owen Stoudemire because he's going to probably be our starting nose tackle. And I think he will be, 1 or 2 technique. He is a good plug. And that's what he's been. When he was at Boston College, that's what he did. That was his skill. And as a plug, he's not going to have, flashing numbers to his name. He's just going to be a plug, gumming up that hole where those running backs are supposed to run. And that's exactly what we need him to do. If we have a good plug, perfect. And that's exactly what we need. We need a plug. Because if you're just getting pushed back 10 yards like Elijah Judy was last year, you're not going to be a good plug. Okay? Then you also got Riley Van Poppel, who I think will be the starting defensive tackle, probably 3 or 4 technique. And I think he actually, he's, in terms of size, he's bigger than Owen Stoudemire. Owen Stoudemire is actually a little undersized, but still has a good ability of stopping the run. I think Riley Van Poppel, being a little more athletic, a little bigger, I think he's could make a disruptive defensive tackle. He could be like the next Ty Robinson. And that's totally achievable. I think he's had a pretty good fall camp, in my opinion. And I think that if he can continue to improve throughout the season, and by the time Michigan State rolls around, just keeps improving, after the non-conference games, I think that'd be great for him. I think he could be a disruptive defensive tackle. And I think Van Poppel has a lot of high upside. And I think that this year is the year where he has to break out, because after that, I don't know what's going to happen if he's mediocre. So Ben Popple is another guy that I think will definitely be a major asset in stopping the run. But then so will Jasir Whittington. I mean, and he probably might start over Ben Popple. I mean, I don't know how they're gonna go. I think Ben Popple, in terms of like a first down, I could see Ben Popple starting. And I think Jasir Whittington's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle, in my opinion, than kind of a plug. But Jasir Whittington is a guy that is going to be also very key in stopping the run. I think he will be important, and I think in getting to the quarterback and getting to the running back is going to be important. And I think he has the leverage and the explosiveness and the speed to do all of those things. And so those three guys that I just mentioned are important, but that's only three if you're a defensive lineman. I mean, there's obviously, you go down the depth chart. I mean, Gabe Moore is a guy that could totally be a good player for Nebraska, and I think he could be a major part of this. Also, Tyson Terry, and I think that, Sula Fodu also, he's been doing pretty solid in fall camp. You can't deny that. So that's my opinion. I think Nebraska can and will be able to stop the run with those defensive linemen that I have mentioned, particularly the three that I first mentioned. And so, that's much better. Those three names are so much better than last year's defensive linemen. Also, just the scheme is a major help. We have an actual defensive lines coach in Corey Brown. No offense to Terry Bradden, but he didn't know what he was doing. We have a good defensive lines coach in Corey Brown. That already right there fixes, a lot of the problem, because the technique is really what killed Nebraska last year. We have a new scheme that's really fit for the Big Ten, brought in by Rob Orch. That already also fixed another problem. And so right there, those are two things that are just two internal problems with the system that's fixed. And then you have another, year of experience under the belt of Ben Popple. Also, Cam Lenhart, the edge group, which we'll get to in a second. And, all those other defense linemen that were there last year. But now let's get to the edge group, okay? So your edge group last year, it wasn't great at all. The whole defensive line last year was not good, okay? It was bad. It was terrible. There's no other word for it. So this year, though, you brought in Anthony Jones, the transfer from UCLA, and he's a guy that, he probably wouldn't improve as much as like a Williams Nwaneri could, just because he's at the tail end of his career. But that doesn't mean that I don't think he will improve. I think he's going to be a good player for Nebraska, and I think he's fine. He's an experienced veteran that's going to be a leader on this edge group. Him, and also I think Williams Nwaneri and Cade Petchak are two other guys that are major key players for Nebraska. Those guys are good, and there's no denying that. So young, they showed lots of flashes. They did. And I think with a good coach like Roy Manning coaching them, I think they're going to take their skill up to a whole nother level. And then you got Cam Lenhart. He's another guy that's kind of a leader on this edge group. And I think Lenhart, we're kind of like Ben Popple. We're just waiting for him to break out. It's just like Ben Popple, very similar anyway. They just haven't done much. I think Cam Lenhart's done more of the two. But we're just waiting for Cam Lenhart to break out, and I think it will happen, and I think it can happen. And I think with him and Anthony Jones kind of the leader of the group, that's going to help this edge group. But I think that edge group is very talented. And you also have like Willis McGahee down there. You have other guys on that edge group that I think have the absolute ability to stop the run. So with that being said, the defensive line, those players are, they're significantly better than last year's. Like, they are better. That's just the truth. Those edge groups, like those defensive tackles, you're bringing in an anchor like Owen Stoudemire. Now, if he can stay healthy, that's the question. But having those players, I think, is just going to really help Nebraska. And that's why I think this defensive line is going to be a big reason why we are able to stop the run. There are big reasons why we didn't stop the run, but last year. But this year, I do believe they will stop the run because of those defensive linemen. But let's get to the linebackers now, because the linebackers are also extremely fundamental in stopping the run. Filling those gaps or those edges, or whatever, to get to the running back if they're trying to do like a jet sweep or just a pitch like on read RPOs, whatever. So the linebackers, they are. Last year they had Deshaun McCullough, who was a good linebacker. He kind of was like a jack of all trades. You had Javin Wright, And he was good. I'm not saying he wasn't. He actually led the team in tackles. He was a good linebacker. I liked Javon Wright. I really did. Then you had Vincent Shavers. And Vincent Shavers, as a freshman, wasn't that good last year. I mean, he didn't have many tackles to his name. He only recorded 1 sack. He didn't do a whole lot. But this year, with a year of experience under his belt, you bring in Owen Chambliss, you bring in Dexter Foster, 2 big-time players that, in my opinion, they could be absolute beasts for Nebraska. Particularly Owen Chambliss. I mean, that guy recorded 109 tackles at San Diego State. That's impressive. I mean, he had more solo tackles than Vincent Shavers' total tackles. And that's not trying to diss on Vincent Shavers. That goes to show, like, where he is in terms of, like, his ability to wreak havoc on other opponents. Now, that is San Diego State, Mountain West. So that obviously doesn't, like, prove that Owen Chambliss is automatically better than Vincent Shavers. But that being said, he has really done well in fall ball. So, you have those 3 guys. And obviously, for the sake of argument, let's just say Vincent Shavers and Owen Chambliss are the 2 starters in the 4-2-5 scheme. Okay, let's just say that for the sake of argument. I obviously think, I mean, he could probably go either way. Dexter Foster's, he has a lot of potential, but he's kind of like Vincent Shavers in the regard where he hasn't done as much as you would like as a linebacker. So, Vincent Shavers, Owen Chambliss. Both of them are obviously in this new scheme. Well, more so Vincent Shavers. So it's a different scheme, already helping the linebackers because it's a better scheme that's meant to stop the run. And you have Rob Dvorak, or I think I'm saying his last name right, Rob Dvorak, I think. And he's a good linebackers coach. Okay? He is. That's the truth. I do like Rob Dvorak. And he has had good linebackers. I think the linebackers from Nebraska have not been bad. I think it's if you have a bad defensive line, it's hard for your linebackers to stop the run. But if you have a solid defensive line, that just complements your linebackers. If you're a defensive line and your linebackers are complementing each other, that really helps your run defense, in my opinion. And that's what we had the first 2 years under Matt Rule. We really did. I mean, we had Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker, Jawari Butler. Those are 3 good players. James Williams, but all 4 are gone, obviously. And so now you have a better defensive line, a good defensive lines coach in Corey Brown, who, I mean, he has developed and proved that he can develop any player at any level. I mean, he was at Rutgers in 2018 and 2019, and he did develop a good defensive line in the short tenure he was there. Now, Rutgers were really bad that year, so it wasn't much to, like, be happy about because they're so bad. But that being said, he has been in the Big Ten, and he has still developed defensive linemen at the Big Ten, which is important. Now, the Big Ten is tougher than it was in 2018 and 2019. But that still is important for Nebraska. It goes to show he knows the Big Ten is physical, so he knows what he has to do to get this defensive lineman up to snuff to be able to compete against other Big Ten opponents. So, your linebackers, your defensive line, like your secondary, they are important if they're like doing jet sweeps as well. Like, they're obviously important, but your front 7, which Nebraska, our front 7 were weak and young last year. Your front 7, which is what we've just evaluated. You look at that, and that's not a bad front 7. They're pretty good in my opinion. Those guys all have had plenty of experience. They all are coached by good coaches. And I think this is probably one of the better and more experienced defensive rosters Nebraska's had in a while. Now, am I going to say that we're going to go out there and be a top 10 defense? No, I don't think that. But I do believe that this could be a solid defense. Now, our defensive line, where should it rank overall? Or our defense, where should it rank overall? Like, nationally. Could it be a top 10 defense this upcoming year? I do not know. I don't think it will be. I think it's probably going to be more of a top 30, in my opinion. I think our pass defense is going to be good again. I think that's going to be the reality. But I think our rush defense, I don't know if it's going to be even in the top 30, in my opinion. I think it will be top 40, but I don't think it's going to be inside the top 30. Maybe top 30 at best, but I think there's so many X factors because if, like, let's say Van Poppel is not great again, or let's say Owen Stoudemire gets injured, like, that could easily happen. We don't want that to happen for Owen Stoudemire or Van Poppel, obviously, but there is a real world where that could happen. And so if Nebraska, I mean, if they're just kind of mid, and they just, they don't have any impact players on this defensive line besides just Whittington or like a Williams or Neri, whatever, then they're gonna not be able to stop the run, and that's gonna be terrible. So you're hoping that none of those things happen, but that is a possibility. But all in all, I do think Nebraska will achieve that ability to be able to give up only like 4 yards per carry, 3.8 yards per carry. I think they will be able to improve it like that. I do believe they will. They have the personnel of all those guys I've just mentioned, and I believe they will improve their red zone efficiency. I believe they will not give up 100 yards or so or whatever to a much weaker MAC school. Because what will be a good test, in my opinion, is when we play the Ohio Bobcats, when we play the Bowling Green, when we play North Dakota, the game shouldn't be close at all. And we should not give up that many rushing yards to any of those teams. It should be like they should have under 100 rushing yards in all 3 of those games. If they don't, well, we know our defensive line is going to have struggles. If they do, then we'll see what happens. But anyway, we will see. That is it for me today, guys. I will see you in the next one. Until next time, go Big Red and go Matt Rule.